I'm Ben James. I'm joined by Andy Howell today. Hopefully a little bit less lively than yesterday's show. I know neither of us were present for it. Hopefully as lively as yesterday's show. I know it was an interesting one, wasn't it? And we want to replicate that again. So if you've got any comments or questions, do get them in. But it'll be me and Andy talking rugby today. So let's get into it.
Are you saying any of Matt South come on here yesterday? Didn't know what he was on about when he mounted his stride in defence of George North. Your colleague Matt, what's your views?
I'm not saying
you
that.
Johnny McNichol, man.
We'll get into North and McNichol a little bit later, but let's start with someone who started on the weekend, Taulupe Faletau. Maybe looked a bit rusty. We've got a question here from Greg Davis. Do you think Faletau looked off the pace last Saturday, and would you change the back row given that we're going to be up against Stander, Omani and Josh van der Fleer this weekend?
Yeah, I agree with him that Faletau was off the pace. He did look rusty. I think that was his fourth match in 13 months. And I thought that was telling. What concerned me as well, it was that much of that game against Italy was played in first or second gear, and having watched Ireland, Scotland, you could be playing in third, fourth gear. This match it could be a huge step up in intensity, ferocity, and I just thought that Faletau was off the pace and didn't look at the match fit. People say, oh yeah, you'll benefit from that game last week, but I'm not buying that because you are playing Ireland this weekend. This is a huge step up. I'd be inclined to start with Ross Moriarty at 8, who is, I interviewed him yesterday. He's busting for it. Simple as. And he's played well at 8 for Wales in the past. And, we didn't really miss Faletau that much while he was at his long absence from international rugby. And I think I would have Faletau on the bench, though.
What I would say is, obviously, there were moments when Faletau looked a little rusty. There was an offload that went to the floor, and he did look a little bit sort of, rusty, picking it up off the ground, just the way it bounced. He wasn't sure of the bounce of it. But then there were moments where I think he carried the ball early on from a ruck, and he sort of carried 4 defenders along with him and made good yardage. He along with Jake Ball, if you look at our pack, they are the 2 big ball carriers. The rest,
Moriarty's a big ball carrier, man.
Yeah, and he looked good, but you're always going to look good coming off the bench against Italy as a ball carrier. Is it just not the case that now that we've got Faletau back after so long, we should just be persevering?
No, I just don't think he's match fit enough for Test rugby at the moment, for top level Test rugby, which is this match will be this weekend. Faletau, one of Wales' best players, been a fantastic player, but he hadn't played for 13 months until last month, and is he still the same player as he was before? And interestingly, during the build up to the World Cup, after he'd broken his collarbone doing Wales training, Warren Gatland, the then coach, said that he may not have made the World Cup squad anyway, claiming that his fitness levels weren't that high. So if they weren't, maybe he's come back into from his long absence and his fitness levels are not what they used to be when he started for Wales. So, if Wales pick him this weekend, there's a chance the game, based on what I saw last weekend, I suggest there's a chance the game could pass him by if Ireland are near their best.
There we go. Talking of conditioning, saying about fitness there, we've got a question here from Mike Bowyer. Says, what's your thoughts on the condition of the players? A few of them didn't seem in peak fitness given the standard of the opposition and looked to be carrying a few more pounds than usual. Well, you can tell that, Mike, not us. I don't think I would, but
yeah, I say we got some perceptive viewers and questioned you, because I also agree with that. I thought that I thought the Wales players did look like they were carrying a bit more baggage, but what you've got to take into account there as well is the quality of the opposition. Italy were poor. And Wales, I thought it was actually a bit lacklustre. Some of that game was like a practice match. So there were cases during the game where Wales were going through the motions a bit. So it's really hard to judge their fitness until we hit a higher quality match, which is played with a lot more speed. Wales were cruising for most of that game. So it's difficult to judge. I guess the proof will be in the put in as the Six Nations carries on.
I suppose one player who looked maybe a little bit rusty, and understandably so, considering he hasn't really played this year, is Rhys Webb.
He's played more than Faletau this year, mate. This season.
But he has, recent weeks he hasn't really played at all, has he? Gareth Davis is back this week. I think Thomas Williams has got the number 9 shirt nailed down, I think, for the foreseeable short-term future. Would you persevere with Rhys Webb on the bench, more minutes, or would you bring Gareth Davis back into the 23?
That's a difficult one. Probably Gareth Davis. He could be in contention to start. I see in the Wales Online ratings that Rhys Webb didn't score very highly, but I actually thought that he was not too bad. And what I like about Webb, which he's always had, and he showed again last week, he's aware of what's happening on the pitch. He plays heads-up rugby, and he does see things. And he used to be a catalyst for Wales. Perhaps he'll have to improve his fitness levels to have a chance of becoming a catalyst again. I'm a big fan of Webb, but I'm also like Gareth Davis's strike running prowess. He's a good sniper, and I think Thomas Williams is a top prospect. So I would stick with Williams, and I think I would probably have Davis on the bench because I think he can make a big impact as a dynamic attacker.
I think what was surprising I don't know if it was surprising, but he looked really good around in the loose, and when he got the ball in sort of open space, it was actually at the breakdown where I couldn't really tell whether it was him getting sort of caught being a little slow, whether he was trying to milk one too many penalties at times, or maybe the Wales weren't presenting the ball cleanly, and there was they're leaving sort of a chance for a counter ruck. But it just didn't seem. It seemed quite messy at the breakdown with Webb's distribution. So that was. I don't
think that was all the times. There's times he's got a good service on him. He gets the ball away rapidly. Scrum-half, you are relying on ball presentation.
I was going to say it felt like he got caught at the base of a ruck, but that was probably less to do with him and maybe more to do with how Wales were winning.
Yeah, that's where the Southern Hemisphere teams score over the Northern Hemisphere. They present the ball much better.
Yeah.
At the breakdown, so and it was a messy match, wasn't it? At Wales, where they were, as I said, cruising, and sometimes you can slip into that sort of casual sort of mode. Although you could tell that Webby was on there and he wanted to prove a point, and I think he did enough to put himself in the frame. Yeah, he's been one of Wales' best players over the years, so you cannot discount Rhys Webb.
Indeed. Just a reminder, if you are tuning in, this is the Game Line, Wales Online's daily rugby debate show. Do keep your questions and your comments coming in, and myself and Andy will endeavour to answer as many of them as we can. So let's head on to a few more questions now. This one from Rhys John. Andy, do you fear for the Welsh scrum on Saturday, given the struggles against Italy, and would you make any changes in the front five?
Wales, scrums are definitely an issue. Although I think we got to give Italy praise. They generally had a decent scrummage inside, and their front row was good, so they put Wales under pressure. I look at the Ireland front row. We got Keane Healy at loose head, Tag Furlong, Lions prop. One of the best players in the game. Not a great scrummager.
Struggling at the minute.
Yeah, but they're big lads and they are powerful lads who will keep, as long as they're on the pitch, they will be at you during all that time, and they will target the Wales scrum. With Rory Best having retired, they've got another hooker there now. Don't think he's a great scrummager. So I would have thought they'll be going for Wales up front, and to me this is a key area which could decide the outcome of the match if it is a lot of scrums and Wales got all their own there. Would I make changes? Ken Owens, I thought he was so last weekend. Line out wasn't brilliant and a scrum, but he's bound to play. He's one of our leaders.
I felt they were taking a few more risks with the line out, which I think is something that Jonathan Humphreys is looking to evolve. I think you saw that Tipuric stepped out the line out a lot, which is something that we would rarely do under Gatland, because Tipuric is sort of safe ball, isn't he? But I think
at times
Humphreys is trying to encourage sort of responsibility to be passed around.
Yeah, at times Tipuric, not last weekend, but under Gatland, at times Tipuric was a one-man team because he was up and down the line out. He was winning all the ball. He's in a loose. He was doing everything.
Yeah.
But they used Wainwright quite a bit last weekend. Loose head prop. Do they keep Wyn Jones in there? Do they bring Rob Evans came off bench, did all right? Is his scrummaging up to it? And of course Rhys Carey is back in the picture now. I mean, he was banned last week, so he couldn't play. Could he at least be on the bench? Would you risk his scrummaging in Ireland?
It's a good question, isn't it? I think they'll go the same. I don't think they'll make any changes. I think Rhys Carey's come off a 3-week ban, and I don't think they'd bring him back in immediately. I thought obviously Wyn didn't have the easiest of games. Rob Evans was good off the bench. Rob Evans is going to be absolutely busting a gut to sort of get that starting jersey back. He's still got the hurt of the World Cup sort of sitting inside him, and he'll be desperate for that. But yeah, I think they'll stick with Wyn Jones.
Yeah, I think they'll stick. I think they will probably stick with the entire front five and keep Corey Hill on the bench. Even though I think that Corey Hill is arguably one of Wales's best players, one of their best leaders, and perhaps is their best lock forward.
Yeah.
But, he does make a big impact off the bench as well. So, and Jake Ball does carry the ball, and he does scrummage strongly. And, he was actually, I just praising Hill, but Ball was our best lock at the World Cup, I think. Alan Wynne-Jones, let's don't discount him, obviously. He's a legend, and he is Mr. Consistency. And he just rolls out the performances over the years. Whereas Ball had a big World Cup, and Hill, he's played really well for Wales in the past. But he also he adds to the line-out. When he came on last weekend, he's a line-out organiser, and he's really good line-out forward as well. So that actually strengthened the line-out. Line-out is quite, depending who, we've seen the Ireland team. James Ryan is obviously good line-out forward. They're good at the back line-out. Their line is actually strengthened this week because O'Mahony's starting. He does like a Tippish, the role Tippish done in the past, up and down the line-out, trying to pick off opposition ball as well. Maybe Ian Henderson and Ball are like-for-like players when it comes to the line-out. So the Irish line-out wouldn't be as strong as, say, they started with Devon Toner.
Yeah.
So I think, you can... I think it will be the same front five with Wales.
Okay, so we're expecting the same front five. Let's move on to the backline, because we're getting quite a lot of questions about a certain outside centre. James Copley asks, would you start Nick Tompkins? Gareth Evans on Twitter says, if Nick Tompkins starts, who drops to the bench, George North or Johnny McNichol? Let's start with that then, and there's a few more questions about North McNichol, which I'm sure we'll get on to after. But let's start with, does Nick Tompkins deserve to start?
Well, he'd be my first choice centre. Simple as, he's got the pedigree. Under 20 World Cup winner, Saracens Champions Cup, English Premiership winners, come from such a high level, culture, super fit, etc. They pride themselves on their excellence. Came on last week and he's best been centre on the pitch by a mile. He made 2 cameo appearances and he impressed, first of all, at outside centre and then at inside centre in the second half. So he'd be my first centre to pick. You've got to pick him. Yep. What I like about him, he does the basics so well. He's almost like a top class New Zealander. Straightens, draws the man, takes our man out of the game with a pass and takes contact just after the pass. And he can pass accurately off either hand. So, he's got speed. And as Moriarty said yesterday, he's got agility as well. He's got to play. Simple as.
Who partners him?
I'd stick with Parks.
Yep. And
I'd play Tompkins. And I would move your mate, George North, to the wing. And drop you your favourite.
What's that comment to me?
Well, I only tried to antagonise you, Ben.
Yeah, I know.
And I would actually leave McNichol out because I did think his defence was a bit soft last weekend, and I don't think you can have that at international level. Though you've got to take into account perhaps the score and the opposition.
And that brings us on to a question here from Owen Pritchard, saying Wayne Pivac's preference appears to be to have one winger who's a sort of a creator and the other who's more of a finisher. First of all, do you agree with that philosophy? And if so, assuming Josh Adams is that finisher, which I think we can assume safely, having just scored a hat-trick and continue to score with the strike rate he is, who other than Johnny McNichol can be that creator on the other wing?
You can have 2 creators. You don't just have one, because it depends where you are on the pitch, doesn't it? It's the blindside winger, really, who's the creator coming into midfield. So you can do both roles in a game. I think Adams can create as well as finish.
Yeah, but I think...
Let's take his last final try, where he turned up for that try. I know he finished there, but he could have almost turned up there in a creative role.
I think
he's roaming.
What Owen's sort of saying here, and something that I said in the piece on the weekend is, so obviously Josh Adams can roam, but he's normally taking the ball primarily as a ball carrier. McNichol's sort of taking it as
a ball player,
as a distribution player. He's taking it behind the line of forwards, running sort of laterally, so he can either sort of pass it on to another forward, pass it wide out to say Nick Tompkins, or he can look for a gap himself. That's not something that we see Josh Adams do for Wales. It's not something we see George North do for Wales. Does that then add further reason to maybe persevere with McNichol, or do we see? Because do you see George North playing in a role like that? Because this is something that Wayne Pivac wants to play with.
No, because he hasn't got the distribution skills of McNichol, and that's where McNichol does score, and he has for the Scarlets when he's been excellent for them. Is his ability to play heads up rugby, either those distribution skills or run himself and taking the right decisions. So this is a massive call for McNichol because Jacob Stockdale is the Irish left wing, is really dangerous in attack, though he's not a great defender himself. And Wales are going to have to counter him as well. And Stockdale is really good in the air. Who's the best in the air out of North and McNichol?
I mean, they're both decent players under the air. I wouldn't say that either of them. It's not a massive part of either their game. You wouldn't say it's like stand out like a damn bigger, but neither of them are sort of fallible under the high ball. I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah. What Wales need as well is maybe this is where McNichol comes in. You need to, if you play cleverly, you can expose Stockdale, like England did in the World Cup warm-up. Not because he looks for the interceptions all the time, and he comes rushing up looking for the interception. And he's a master of it, picking off. So you need a centre like Tompkins, who's clear, knows what knows what the game is all about, does the basics, dummy, and you can fill that gap. So you can exploit Stockdale by half going for that gap and giving him a pass round Stockdale's back then to whoever's outside North or McNichol.
So
I think Stockdale is good with the ball,
yeah.
but he is overrated.
So
defensive.
If we're going on sort of that McNichol's the better sort of link player, that creator in the back three, the pivot once, why do you personally think then that George North is going to start in tomorrow's team?
Because of defensive issues, and I thought North played well last week in the centre. Germany, I thought he had a good game, and his record. What's his record now? 40 odd tries or something, 90 odd caps. So it's pretty decent. And history, North has some of his best games have come against Ireland, so maybe that's a factor. Or impact wise, I think North be better as an impact player on a bench than McNichol. McNichol to me is more of a starter. Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting selection. Of course, the other thing is that George North has got such a big reputation over the years that he's been given a lot of more latitude by Warren Gatland, and I would start off now with Pivek, and perhaps other players would.
Yeah, potentially.
So he certainly had a lot more rope than Mr. Alex Cuthbert did.
I think.
For one.
Look, I think Wales aren't going to lose too much, whichever way they go. You might believe the stats show that George North had a better game. I don't buy that. I think if you look at the stats, broken down contextually.
I hope Matt Southcombe is watching this show now, because this is a response to his the KC.
I don't think it's a response.
KC yesterday.
I just you talk.
What do you think, Matt?
You talk that North made more meters, but per carry, I think they made the exact same. And you consider that.
I didn't say he made more meters.
I'm not accusing you of saying it, Andy. I never would. Saying McNichol was taking the ball as a distributor, not a carrier. So to make 7 meters per carry is different to George North making 7 meters per carry where he's taking it. I think at the end of the day, stats are just numbers on a page. It's black and white, and the game is grey. Anyway, that's my rant over. Let's get on to more questions before I really put my foot in it and say something I'm not meant to.
So you say McNichol starting, and I'm saying North.
I'm saying I would start McNichol, but I probably agree with you that I think they'll start.
I think Wales will
start North.
I think Wales will just make either 1 or 2 changes. I think that there's a possibility that Moriarty will start instead of Faletau, and I think that Tompkins will definitely start, and I think North could be on the wing. So.
Indeed. Well, I'm glad I got that off my chest. A little bit of not breaking news because it hasn't really broken yet, but we're hearing rumours that Dewi Lake has been called up to the squad. So let's touch on that. Greg Sherrington asks, Dewi Lake, ? Is Elliot D struggling? And at the minute, we don't really know. We're sort of doing some digging upstairs as we speak, but it's an interesting one, isn't it?
I saw Elliot yesterday. I had a quick word with him. He appeared okay, but of course he's had a rib problem, so it's hard to detect. Byron Haywood, the defence coach, did the press yesterday, and he said that Elliot was fit, though he did add, Elliot, if you have 5 broken ribs, he'd tell you the next day he could play. So we don't know. Dewey Lakeman, he's already trained with the squad last couple of weeks, because they see him as he's Wayne Pivek's type of hooker. He likes a big hooker, and they see him as one for the future. So it would be a benefit past him training. Of course, we don't know if the injury is to if it is the deep who's still got the problem, or it's Ryan Elias or Ken Owens, or is this just a rumour? We don't know. One thing I would say though is that you couldn't have Dewey Lake at this stage of his career in a match day 23 to play Ireland for his debut, because he's certainly work in progress when it comes to accuracy, thrown into the line-out. That is the one thing which is let him down at under 20 level, despite him being a fantastic prospect for the future. But
the presumption is, if Dewey Lake's been called up the senior squad,
they need a third hooker man for training one day. Yeah, because of numbers.
But you'd assume that one of them is ruled out
of this game,
potentially longer. Otherwise, they could do what they did last week and just keep him on as a...
Yeah, but you need to take 3 hookers to Ireland anyway.
Yeah,
3 fit hookers because of in case anyone breaks down in a warm-up. It's like a scrum-half, really. You need 3 scrum-halves. And because such a specialist position, same as hooker.
Yeah.
So, maybe he could go, he'd be over there as like a 25th man, 26th or 27th.
It'd be interesting to sort of see how this one develops. You'd imagine there'd be an update later today.
Say, if you needed someone to be on the bench, I would go for someone, off the top of my head, this is like Sam Parry. Someone like, who's a more experienced hooker. I don't know what Christian Dacey's fitness situation is at the minute. It'd be a hell of a big call if Lake had to go on the bench.
Okay, we'll finish with one more question here.
Do you know what? Here's the other one. Do you know why I pick in emergency? Here's a good one. Because he's I'd argue he's past Wales' best hooker this season, is Richard Ibbard.
I was about to say
he's been brilliant. Richard Ibbard. Been brilliant all season.
There we go. It's a little exclusive for you there. Final question then. From Glenn Jones. Actually, we'll start with a comment. Sean Barry says, we want Sean Edwards back. And then Glenn Jones says, given France's defensive display against England on the weekend, are Wales going to regret letting Sean Edwards leave for a rival nation?
Well, they didn't let him leave. He chose to go. The situation was Wigan had signed Edwards on a contract for him to return to rugby league. That was what everyone in the WIU, and Pivot was coming in as coach. That's what everyone thought. That was the situation. Edwards was off the rugby league, not available. And then all of a sudden, Edwards puts himself back on the market. Wigan agreed to release him. By that stage, Wales had already appointed Byron Haywood as defence coach. Pivot had talks with Edwards about his future. And the Wales management are on 4-year contracts, but there's a 2-year option, 2 plus 2. Edwards wanted a straight 4-year contract. I know that because he told me himself. And so it's sort of...
you couldn't really have that.
Yeah, you couldn't really have that. The others never. And then I think as well... So anyway, France came in for him. He knows Ibanez and that from his days at Wasps, and he was keen to go over there for his schooling of his kid and the French thing. And so he took that option. Pivotline has pulled a masterstroke in the meantime by appointing Sam Warburton. Warburton is a member of his defensive team with technical expertise. And France were brilliant last weekend. They were so aggressive in defence. But defence, at the end of the day, doesn't matter who's coaching you. It's a mindset. Either you want to tackle or you don't. And France certainly wanted to tackle last week, and they had appetite and they were in their faces like Wales used to be under Edwards. Whereas Wales last week actually against Italy were a bit slightly passive their line speed in defence. But however, they didn't concede a point. And it's the first time in the 6 or 5 nations apparently since I think it was 1994. And the first time they haven't conceded a point since the 2011 World Cup against Fiji. So, was Wales' defence actually better last week, if you look at scoreboard, than it was under Edwards? And, even though I'm a huge fan of Sean Edwards, Wales' defence at the World Cup and doing the warm-up matches wasn't as good as it had been previously. It started to leak twice. I personally think it was time for a change.
He was always going to have to leave at some point.
At some point he was, So, France, and let's have a look at the Six Nations, how it progresses and see the end result. Let's see how France do in the championship as a whole, where they finish, and the same with Wales.
It's like marriage, isn't it? 50% ends in divorce, the other 50% ends in death. It's going to end, isn't it? Sean Edwards is always going to leave.
I don't know where you got that stat from, Ben, but
that's a good numbers game there, right? I think that's it.
Hang on a minute. Now you're a bloke that says you don't really like stats. You're not a stats man, and you throw that away at the end of the show. What's going on?
It's like what they always say about statistics. It's like how a drunk man uses a lamp post. It's don't use it for support. Use it for illumination. And that is it for today on the Game Line. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place for the Wales team announcement.